Andre Borcher has had that spin. Borcher, I'm just having a look at his car. He has got some substantial wing damage, and he's also got Jeremy Bouteloup in another of the Radicals cars coming up right behind him as they come down into turn number 5 once again.
Yep, great battles all throughout the track, and just want to go back. Philo had such a good run going, and well, it's always aggravating when your car gets destroyed and the driver that, you know, collected you is out still driving. So, man, unfortunate. But now some great battles in the middle of the pack as Bouteloup is going to be on Bocher now, which Bocher might have a little bit of damage from that contact.
He does seem to have quite a lot of damage to that front wing. Towards the rear of the field, by the way, Michel Mancusi and Marcus Catton are battling for P22 on the racetrack as we speak. Now, let's not forget that there are different things that these drivers want to do right now, as Jeremy Bouteloup has indeed been able to make that pass on Andre Borcher. It was a very easy pass, actually, when all was said and done. And there are different things that these drivers consider in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. You think about Gregor Hutu, you think about Hugo Louise and some of those top drivers. Of course, they are battling for the championship. For some of the guys towards the rear of the field, they're battling for pride, to just get themselves a decent, solid finish in the championship, Aaron. And let's be honest, no, not everyone can win the championship. For some guys, just keeping their WCS license for 2015 is going to be a victory in their own part for them.
You don't want to, right now, you want to string as many good finishes as possible, top 15s, top 10s, because you don't want to get in the second half of the season and have to think where you stand. Are you at risk of essentially relegation, not making it? So that's why at the start of this race we saw such intense racing for 15th, 16th, 20th position, because this is an important part of the season. You don't want to have that pressure later on. Get the good finishes now. Get the points now, where that's not in your mind later on of having to be perfect and not thinking about relegation later on.
And we do have to talk about two guys scored in 26th and 27th position, Gregor Hutu and Oli Picard. They were stopped scoring for one lap. We don't have any reason to understand why. However, they are scored in the 26th and 27th positions in the racetrack. And you have to say, for both those drivers, this is going to be hugely disappointing for them, because you have a look at Gregor Hutu. He would have been running in a net 3rd position, Oli Picard in a net 4th position. And earlier on into the championship, this is the last thing that you're going to want to have when you're trying to get momentum in the early rounds of the season.
Yeah, for these drivers, one lap down, we really can't figure out why, but for them right now, they got it. As a driver, you don't want to be in that position. Things outside your control, putting you one lap down, but for the two of them, they just have to log laps, be as clean as possible, and try to make up as much ground as possible.
The field has started to settle down a little bit as well. We have got a couple of battles which continue on at the racetrack, mainly outside the top 15. You've got Dion Verges and Isaac Price battling for position right now for P19 and 20 respectively on the racetrack. Ahead of them, you've got Timo Eden and Riku Adatalo. They are battling for position. Andre Borcher is back onto pit road, however, so it does look as though whatever happened to Borcher is really terminal, because he's got some front wing damage. He is back onto his pit road for his second stop, and he was on a one-stop strategy, Aaron.
Yeah, he was losing about two seconds plus a lap, so for him, fix the wing damage, get the speed back in the car, making the stop now. Let's see how long they hold him. But so he's backing away, but the time it took him to stop now, over the course of the entire run, he's going to gain time, because he was losing 2-3 seconds a lap with that damage.
Yeah, and he has got a new front wing on that 3D Motorsports car, and he is back out and away in that number 9 machine, and he has fallen down to the rear end of the top 20, however. Jake Sturgis, who's running in the 20th position, is right behind him now on the racetrack. So a bad turn of events there for Andre Borcher, and that all started with that half spin down into the center S, Aaron. And from that point on, Andre Borcher, who's having a great run here today, qualifying in 7th position, leading laps here, just didn't go well for him.
Didn't go well, and when he goes back, he's going to replay that half spin 1,000 times in his mind if he hasn't already. I think that's why it took him so long to make a pit stop. If he knew he was, that incident happened about 6-7 laps ago. If to get the maximum gain, he should have pitted immediately. Here comes Jake Sturgis now behind him. He may be able to make a move. He's going to look on the right, and here he goes. He's going to go around the outside here on the main straightaway.
Indeed, he will. So Jake Sturgis there, who, let's not forget, won in the Peak Antifreeze NASCAR Series powered by iRacing.com on Tuesday night at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And it's been an up and down week really for Sturgis, because he had, of course, that great finish, taking victory there in what was a fuel mile race to the end. However, here today, he qualified in the 17th position, running in the 18th position. And this is the same Jake Sturgis who, let's not forget, 2 years ago, finished third in the championship and had a great run in the championship last year. Does seem to be he's just not got that much speed in his Onyx racing car right now.
Yeah, not the race he wanted to go, and it's amazing how fast in racing, how fast you can go from a win to just not having the day you want. 18th currently, and for Andre Bocher, I think the damage is more than just the wing damage. That car's still not as quick in a straight line, so for Bocher, it's just going to be logging laps now. As incident behind him as Marcus Canton gets contact and he spins around, so that was the battle for 20th, resulting in contact and a spin, but everybody keeps going.
Yeah, and that was contact there with Michelle Mancusi down into turn number 12 on the racetrack, as they ran down into Young Cow, and then actually then almost 3-4 wide cars scattering, pushing the Lente all the way on the AstroTurf there.
And actually, well, that was right in front of our leader, Hugo Luis, so very lucky Luis there. He had to slow way down. He was on the accelerating up the hill. He went from 120 having to go all the way down to less than 70 miles an hour to avoid that incident.
I need to interrupt you because I've got word that Jonas Nakurian and Gregor Hutu have had a moment on the racetrack, and two Finnish drivers. Yeah, indeed, Jonas Nakurian, and I think this was Jonas Nakurian who was spun there in that Radicals car, and he was trying to battle with Kazuki Omishima,
yes.
And then he just, I think he spun his car, and Gregor Hutu coming down into Young Cow, out of Young Cow, just clipped Nakurian, flipping upside down. Gregor Hutu is out of the race.
And again, the spinning car needs to stay stationary. Nakurian just, it looks like he got on the gas trying to get back in the race, having no idea that two cars were coming. And for Gregor Hutu, what can you do? What can you do? It's like being T-boned at an intersection. I don't think Hutu ever saw it coming.
So that's the second car we've had incidents with cars spinning and coming back onto the racetrack. Jonas Nakurian now, and of course we have the big one with Andre Bocher a little bit early on. So a bad day goes even worse for Gregor Hutu, and this is one of his first retirements in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series for quite a long time. We'll have to get our statistician to see just how many races it has been. And we have got UAE who's had another problem, but it seems on the racetrack front, however, Hugo Luis is still leading, but the gap has come down between himself and Martin Kroenke. Kroenke last time by 1:11.805, Hugo Luis at 1:11.8. Just trying to see where he lost all that time, and it was on lap number 40. Hugo Luis lost 3 seconds in one lap trying to get around some lap traffic.
No, that was the incident with Marcus Canton. He had to slow all the way down to 65 miles an hour at a spot where you're normally doing 150, as the track had a spinning car. So for Hugo Luis, I was mentioning that when we had the Hutu incident, for Hugo Luis losing 3 seconds there, that could play out at the end. When you're on that strategy, you really can't afford those 3 seconds, but what we've seen with spinning cars, it was definitely better to play it safe than risk a car moving on you. So this middle section of the race has gotten really rather bizarre, Will. So Andre Bocher lets his teammate Hugo Luis go by. Clean move there, which Andre Bocher's car just, that damage really has not played well for him, and for a driver right now, very aggravating to go the rest of the race with the car capable of running in the top 3 and just not go his way. And Mansuni now right behind him, battle for 19th, and with Bocher's car, I really don't think he is going to have anything there for him. As the battle for 19th continues on, behind him, Martin Kroenke runs second. Battle for 21, 22, 23, still 3 cars in a line. Great battle there. The contact doesn't seem to have affected any of those cars. Those were the 3 cars involved in the incident about 4 laps down. In front of them, Mancusi now is going to make the pass for 19th spot, and for Bocher, it won't be long before he falls into the clutches of the battle for 21st, 22nd, 23rd. So, oh man, for Bocher, long race still to go, and right now he's just in a battle right now to salvage as many points as possible. And oh boy, long race for him. He still has about 27 laps to go. Hugo Luis out front, 1:11.4 at that time. Let's take a look at the lap times. Martin Kroenke, just 6/1000ths of a second slower. So for the 2 drivers out front, mirroring each other's lap times, but there's 4.9 seconds behind them. Then it's 24 seconds back to Enzo Benito, but remember, split strategies at this moment in time. So split strategies there, so we really don't know how this is going to play out until the front 2 make their final pit stops, which going back 4 laps ago for Hugo Luis, those 3 seconds, that could be huge, as Luis is going around Paul Ilbrink at the moment, so that's going to put us 17 cars on the lead lap at this point in time. Next car that will be potentially going a lap down, Jake Sturgis, who, as Will mentioned, won earlier this week in the Peak Antifreeze Series, but right now he is about to fall into the clutches of Hugo Luis. Maybe this lap, maybe next lap, and then for Hugo Luis, it's going to be another 13, 14 seconds of the car in front, so this could be the last lap car Hugo Luis has to deal with in some time. Other battles at the race on the track right now. Big battle for 14th, 15th, 16th. Timo Ivanen, then Dion Vergers and Isaac Price going at it as the battle for 15th. As Dion heads into the pits right now, so that's going to be a 2-step strategy. So that battle is going to quiet down at the.
So then, working ourselves right now on lap number 45 out of 71 here at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace. Hugo Luis is still classified as your race leader by 4.8 seconds over Martin Kroenke. He has been able to start closing, bringing that gap back out. However, last time by, those 2 drivers were separated by just 1/1000th of a second on the racetrack, as we are into the closing stages of this race right now. Drivers who are classified as out of the race, you have Alexia Loma, Jorn Yen, Simon Cattell, Jason Lover, Stephen Michaels, Mo Garfila, and perhaps most prominently you have Gregor Hutu. Hugh Abe is classified in the race, however he is scored 3 laps down right now, and this race really did take a huge turn of events a little bit earlier on, as it all just really went wrong for Andre Bocher down into the center S about 7 laps ago right now, as he then collected a couple of drivers that put Mo Garfila out the race. However, Hugo Luis, he is getting closer and closer to his second pit stop. We're going to go on board with Hugo Luis, and this is going to be a lap from his eyes as he leads the race, as we work ourselves right now on lap number 47 out of 71. So then, Aaron, we're working on board of Hugo Luis right now, and you have to say he really has just been dominant in this race. He's pulling out a gap over Martin Kroenke once again, but just phenomenally quick he's been right now. And once again, we have to say this is a driver who's been ill all week, but Hugo Luis driving phenomenally right now.
Phenomenally, as Martin Kroenke is in the pits this time, so Hugo Luis is going to go a lap longer. But for Hugo Luis, this is the moment in time. This is the part of the race that if you are ill, this is where it's going to start affecting you. We are now 57 minutes into this race, and if you have any ailments whatsoever, this is where mind over matter will. That's really what he's going to have to do right now. If you start getting a headache, start getting If you need to drink
Some pit
water
road
at
as
this
well.
point in time, this is where it's going to affect him.
He's onto pit road for his second pit stop of the day as well, with 47 laps scored complete in this race. So 45 miles an hour. Be interesting to see if he takes tyres on his final start. That will potentially make his pit stop shorter. He will take 4 fresh tyres. He will top back up with race gas as well. He will be out and away for his final stint in this race, and that will give the race lead over to Martin Kroenke as he comes past the start-finish line. He will be provisionally scored as your race leader. You have to say, though, the driver who we haven't talked too much about, Enzo Benito, he really has had a great race going on.
Great race for Enzo Benito. However, not able to get out in front of Hugo Luis. That gap maybe about 1.5, 2 seconds. So I think Hugo Luis is actually going to maintain the lead here.
Indeed, the answer is yes, he did. So Hugo Luis, he was able to gain enough of a stop there to get back out into the race lead ahead of Enzo Benito. The gap between those two drivers has come down the racetrack as Benito gets a huge wiggle there through turn number 7, and he was also to get out Hugo Luis ahead of Kazuki Onishima, making the pass on him in his running racing car. So Onishima, of course, he didn't start the last race. He's having a difficult day here today, running in the 25th position in his first running in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. But one of the things that we need to pay attention to in the last stages of this race is lap traffic. As Ole Picard spins his car. Ole Picard spins his car down into the center rest. Dion Burgess comes to a complete stop there to avoid hitting him. And Picard, I think there was just the tiniest amount of contact actually between the two drivers, but thankfully, because Burgess slowed down, he was able to just about avoid any further incident. And that was a close one, Aaron.
Very close. Just got clipped just a little bit. Great job of avoiding by a couple drivers there to not make contact, but well, he did get spun out, but really that could have been a lot worse. Still in the race, we've seen other drivers spin, and well, race is ruined, but for Ali Pacala, not as bad as it could have been.
And Enzo Benito, the gap between himself and Hugo Luis, by the way, is 2.4 seconds on the racetrack. And last time by, Benito did a 1:11.649. And we'll get confirmation to see what Hugo Luis's lap time as they come past the drive. And we were talking about lap traffic just a moment ago, just about how difficult it can be to get around the lap traffic, even with blue flags, on such a difficult middle section of the racetrack. Hugo Luis does a 1:12.1. Enzo Benito does a 1:11.9. Here comes Enzo Benito.
Here comes Enzo Benito, and you're right, lap traffic. There are blue flags, that means move over, but in the middle section of this racetrack, there really is nowhere to go. If you catch them at the wrong point in time, you really could spend about 5-6 of those infield turns waiting to get back around. So I count about 7 cars that are going to come into play here in the next 5 or 6 laps. Lots of traffic coming up.
And for Hugo Luis, he needs to hope that there wasn't a repeat of what happened at Yonkau about 15 laps ago in this race, because that really could make this another close finish in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. I do think, though, all of a sudden Enzo Benito has got the bit between his teeth, because he's just become a different driver in the last 5 or 6 laps or so. And ever since he knew that he was in touching distance of winning this race, he really has started pounding up some incredibly fast laps. His last lap, working through traffic, was a 1:11.9. Before that, a 1:11.6, a 1:11.4, a 1:11.5. Let's see whether Hugo Luis can respond. The answer is yes, but not by that much, because look at Enzo Benito, a 1:11.1.
Wow, what a lap by Enzo, and you see this so many times with drivers. You can practice, you can qualify, and you can be fast, but when you have that car in front of you, when you are that close, your mind, your body, you can just start doing lap times you didn't know were possible. So Benito right now on the move, and for our leader Hugo Luis, wow, we've got 3 cars in front of him now, make it 4 cars within about 2 turns of each other, and Benito is closing the gap at a super quick rate. We're going to have a battle for the lead here within a couple laps, Will.
We're going to have an amazing battle for the lead once again for the second race in a row in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. It will come down to that run after pit stop. Benito did lose a little bit there in turns number 11 and 12. He now comes to Young Cow. Up the hill, he will come. Once again, the gap is about 1 second on the racetrack. And if Hugo Luis is lucky and catches these drivers on the straightaways, and actually, it could be an advantage. Oli Picana and Andre Borcha, they are battling right now for P21 and 22 ahead of them on the racetrack. But last time by, Benito, the gap was down to 0.6 of a second on the racetrack. Here comes number 17 Team Redline car.
Wow, what a turn of events. Wonder if maybe the tire situation with Hugo Luis changing it. Wonders if those just aren't agreeing. Whatever the case may be, Benito is there, and for Hugo Luis, he is going to have to hope that he catches traffic in the right spot, like right here on the racetrack next lap, where he gets around and then he has a buffer where maybe he can build the lead. But right now, I don't know if he's going to get that far. Benito looks to the inside, and here he goes.
Oh, what a pass there by Enzo Benito around the outside of Hugo Luis. Enzo Benito to the race lead. I'm just trying to figure out whether Luis was into a half spin there. He did. Back out of the way. Enzo Benito around. I have never seen a pass like that, Aaron.
No, never. If you said there'd be a pass for the race lead at that part of the racetrack at the start of the race, I would have said, no way. We just saw it. What a pass. And now it's up to Hugo Luis to find that, whatever he has left. It could be potentially the illness he's had. I said this is where it was really going to play into a factor. Gotta wonder, maybe is that what's going on right now? Is the fact that he's been now racing for 64 minutes on what could be the most physical racetrack, mentally and physically, is that playing a part?
Indeed, and you have to say, for Hugo Luis, his lap times aren't as fast as they were earlier on in this race. He has been struggling a little bit, and let's not forget, his entire runs he was running within the 1 minute 11, he did laps in the 1 minute 12 after his pit stop. Let's see whether or not he can regroup, however, because, I mean, the gap was 0.7 of a second last time by. It is not over for Hugo Luis in that number 3 3ID Motorsports machine, as the lap traffic will now play into his hands a little bit. You got Lassie Brun Hansen ahead of race leader Enzo Benito, and Andre Borcha ahead of race leader Enzo Benito, who will likely be caught in the next lap and a half to 2 laps. But you have to say, the number 17 driver, Enzo Benito, what a run he has had in the first 2 races of this season.
What a run, making an absolute statement. Now in the lead, driving away, and about 17 laps away from taking victory. Although it's going to be a long 17 laps, 2 lap cars in front of him. And Hugo Luis picked it back up, has got back into the 111. So for Luis right now, maybe he's going to be able to find what he had earlier on. Maybe the tires are going to come in, and don't count Hugo Luis out of this race at all.
Don't count Hugo Luis out of the race in any way, shape or form. The gap was up to 1.2 seconds at last time by, but this is the difficult bit, because now Benito is going to have to get around lap traffic at the most difficult part of the racetrack. He's got Lasse Brun Hansen and Andre Borcha ahead of him. We know, of course, that Borcha is with an ailing race car. You see, Brun Hansen gets out of the way. Now, Benito will likely get past Borcha on that run down into Young Cow. But behind him, Luis is really doing everything he can to get past the lap traffic as well. He knows he's got to maximize his advantage in this part of the race.
Absolutely maximize it right now, and for Enzo Benito, he's going to catch Andre at almost the right time if he can get around him before turn 1, because he's going to have the slipstream toe down the straightaway. He's going to look up the inside of P18, and he is going to put Andre Borcha a lap down. So the gap, that last lap, another 4/10. Another 4/10 Enzo Benito's faster, so Benito still driving away.
Benito is still driving away, and the gap is now up to 1.6 seconds on the racetrack. Martin Conke is sat in the 3rd position right now, 8.2 seconds behind your race leader. Tommy Nilsson in 4th. Yorni Tamada is on pit road once again from 5th position. So Yorni Tamada is on pit road to make his final stop of the race. That will improve Martin Patila's position up into 5th. Robin Friskops is running in the 7th position right now. Jeremy Fuchslu in 8th. And then you've got Ilka Hakada in 9th. And then Riku Alatauro round out your top 10. Where did Benito come from in this race? He qualified in 4th, fell back earlier on, and now all of a sudden he's leading this race and pulling away from Hugo Luis. And Yorni Tamala has spun his race car on the racetrack, and he's now got Alex Simpson in the Apex Racing number 35 car getting past him. Yorni Tamala, he had to spin, and he's back onto the racetrack. No real harm, no foul, but he actually spun it coming out of pit road. It's one of the most difficult places to actually sort your car out, and he has got some wing damage because of it, Aaron. Yorni Tamala, very close call there for him, and we have seen some drivers being very, very aggressive with coming out of pit road at this racetrack, and he has got to be aggressive because yes, it's a shorter way around, just like at Spa. However, it's a very tight, difficult section of the racetrack.
Yes, and when you do have those split strategies, if you can gain that 1 or 2 seconds on the exit, that could be the difference between a couple, 3-4 positions, as we do have close battles in the middle of the racetrack, and we do have more cars coming into the pit, so these drivers are really going to push it on exit. You have to for every position.
And Martin Patella and Tommy Nilsson, they are battling on the racetrack right now. So Tommy Nilsson and Martin Patella, they're having a great scrap for the last of the top 5 positions right now. You have got a number of drivers scored 1 lap down. Andre Borchard, Lasse Brun Hansen, Michelle Mancusi, Kazuki Omishima, Dion Burgess, Marcus Caton, Alexei Yutiakola, Ali Bakala, Christian Laurent, Yunus Nakurian are all scored 1 lap down. UA is scored 3 laps down right now. And in P22, you've got Dion Burgess right now working in that 18th position. But you've also got Oli Piccardo right now battling side by side with Marcus Caton. And for Oli Piccardo as well, this has got to be heartbreaking for him. Not getting scored for 1 lap, but, you know, he's running a great race. And so Benito, by the way, is on and off of pit road. So Benito makes a second stop in this race.
Oh, so that would explain how he was so much quicker there. Definitely would explain that.
So Enzo Benito, he made a second pit stop, and I'm just trying to figure out where Enzo Benito came into pit road that first time by, and it was at the conclusion of lap number 31. So for Enzo Benito, he's actually just done a very short middle stint, and he's on a 2-stop strategy. That's not a strategy that we expected to have happen, but this puts Hugo Luis comfortably back into the race later. Perhaps Luis knew that was going to be the case, judged by Benito's lap times, and that's why he allowed him to go around the outside of him. Just didn't want to get his race car into any trouble. But Hugo Luis is now scored once again as your race leader. A crazy turn of events here at Interlagos, and I have no idea why Benito did a 2-stop strategy.
No idea whatsoever. Neither of us even thought that was even a possibility if you pitted at that point in time to not go the distance. So we'll have to see where Benito slots out of the pits. But for Hugo Luis, I think you're right, Will. I think he realized that there is no way Benito was on a one-stopper with the speed he had. So why risk it? Just let him go.
And Benito comes out into the 3rd position on the racetrack. That moves Martin Conke back up into the 2nd position. So your top 2 drivers, they qualified on the front row. They are leading once again. Prix Motorsports have come back into their own this season, because last year they had a difficult time in that middle portion of the campaign, and I immediately have to turn back to Sebring 1 year ago when Luis and Conke almost came together, and that arguably cost Luis the race. Then at Watkins Glen, the 2 cars out in the first corner of the first lap after they came together, Luis and Conke. Now it does look as though that Prix Motorsports are back into high gear.
Oh, back into high gear and in dominating fashion. Absolute dominating fashion at this point in time. Back to Benito, it is now 19.6 seconds. So Hugo Luis has a 7.2 second gap on second, but wow, what a run.
Kazuki Omishima had a very close call actually with Lasse Brun Hansen just a moment ago. I'm trying to see if there was any contact between those 2 drivers. There wasn't, but Kazuki Omishima having a great battle with Michelle Mancusi and with Lasse Brun Hansen right now. This mid-pack really is nose to tail between Andre Borchard, Yorni Tamala on the racetrack, Michelle Mancusi, Kazuki Omishima, and they've also got Martin Conke in P2 trying to get around all of them because, of course, these guys are scored 1 lap down.
And looking at this, we have P17 through about P22. Just about 4 seconds separates, maybe about 5 seconds separates 22 through P17. So and this race to the checkered is going to be very intense. As you mentioned, every point in this series matters, and none of these drivers are going to leave anything on the table. If they can take it, they're going to take it. Sure.
They are going to take it indeed, but the gap between Louise and Martin Conque is 7.3 seconds on the racetrack. Enzo Benito is a further 12 seconds back in the third position. Tommy Nilsson, what a run by Tommy Nilsson today in that number 31 car, running in the fourth position. We haven't talked much about him at all, but what a run for that Twister racing machine.
Yeah, he started P15, so a great run through the field. He too was on a two-step strategy and was really putting down some good lap times before his second stop. But at the moment, great run, but he does have Marty Patila behind him, and this battle for fourth is gonna, I think, rage to the end of this race with about 11 laps to go.
Yeah, Oli Picard is still battling with Alexei Yusiakoda right now, and you've got Andre Borcher, Lasse Brun Hansen, and Dion Burgess. They are still pretty much nose to tail. That battle between Tommy Nilsson and Martin Patilla. Last time Brian Patilla did a 1 minute 11.663. His fastest lap of the race is a 1:11.2. Tommy Nilsson last time by a 1:11.7. That is about half a tenth of a second slower, and his fastest lap of the race is 0.2 of a second slower than Martin Patilla. So right now, you've got to say that Nilsson is on pure defense.
Pure defense, and it could be the dirty air once again. Marty really closes up on these two straightaways, but he just doesn't have anything for Nilsson in the middle section of the racetrack. So what we saw earlier in the race, that's what we're seeing again right now. Closes up on the straights, but in the middle of the track just doesn't seem to have anything at this point in time.
Andre Borcher and Lasse Brun Hansen side by side. They're going to stay side by side through turn 5. You do not want to go side by side with that Borcher on the racetrack. They stay side by side through turn number 6. Brun Hansen and Andre Borcher able to get the job done eventually, and that was after 4 corners of side by side racing. What a move there! What a battle between those two drivers. And let's not forget, Brun Hansen's the driver who ran side by side through Air Rouge last week.
Again, side by side through there, like that. Incredible stuff, showing just how strong this field is, that you can run side by side through there and come out the other side. But this battle's not over, Will.
Behind them, you've got Alexei Yusiakoda and Dion Burgess. They've been side by side for almost half a lap. Let's see whether Yakoda can go around the outside into turn number 1. The answer's going to be they contact Yakoda! Spinning around there, and after side-by-side racing for almost half a lap, it comes with Soroyen down into the center as it looks as though that Alexei Yusiakoda tried to pinch down into that first corner, really did pinch Burgess down onto that inside curb. Now that inside curb is part of the racing line. The two make contact, but it does look as though that Yakoda is going to try and carry on. Dion Burgess is also still circulating on the racetrack, but that was a messy incident there between those two drivers.
Oh, and unfortunate for both drivers there. Either driver there could have maybe done something just a little bit different, but contact on lap 61, and Oleske definitely got the worst end of that contact.
And this battle that we were talking earlier between Tommy Nilsson and Martin Patilla, that has settled down for a lap or so, because Nilsson now has a 1.1 second advantage over Patilla. And I am thinking that perhaps Patilla's tyres might be going away, because he was struggling on the infield section that time. He comes out of Young-Cal. Let's see what the gap is going to be as they come past the start-finish line once again. Martin Patilla last time I did a 1 minute 12.2 compared to a 1:11.6 for Tommy Nilsson. As they come past the track once again with less than 10 laps to go in this race, the battle for the 4th position, 1:11.7 for Tommy Nilsson, 1:11.9 for Martin Patilla. This battle will still go to the end, however, it's a 1.2 second deficit right now for Martin Patilla.
And he's going to have his work cut out for him. That car, he's faster on the straightaways, but right now really struggling in the infield section. He's losing just about a tenth a lap, and it's all in this second sector. So car not as strong there as it was just about 5 laps ago when this battle was, when he was right there. But for right now, 5th place, still a great run for Patilla, but if he has anything left, he has 8 laps to try to get back up to Tommy Nilsson.
The next round of the 2014 NASCAR Peak Anti-Freeze Series is on March 25th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 125 laps around the Auto Club Speedway. It'll be live on PSR TV, the Motor Racing Network, and also on iRacing Live. And the next round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series will be March 29th, Suzuka Circuit, here on Racebot TV. And less than 10 laps to go in this race. That battle between Nelson and Patila continues on. There's still battles, though, going on up and down this field, Aaron. And we talked about it in the first part of this race, that the drivers will separate with fuel loads. They'll come back together in the middle stage of the race. Then they'll separate, and they're doing that final coming together with less than 10 laps to go.
Oh, yeah. The battles all throughout the racetrack. We've got the three cars battling for 20th. That battle for 5th, or 4th rather, is going to rage to the end. So as the strategies now have come together, we do have battles all throughout the racetrack. Battle for 12th, Riku Alatalo and Isaac Price are almost nose to tail. About 3 car lengths separate them for the battle for 12th. And yeah, all throughout the field, this is going to be good to the end. These drivers, every point matters, and if you have that car in front of you, you're not just going to be content running with 13th. If you're in 13th and 12th is in front of you, you're going to do everything possible to make that pass.
Alex Simpson in the number 35 Apex Racing UK car has been able to move himself up into the 10th position on the racetrack. However, he is under a little bit of pressure right now from Jake Sturgis. Last time by, Sturgis was 2/10 of a second faster, and Sturgis is only about half a second back on the racetrack. And Sturgis really has had a good second half of this race. He languished a little bit in the first half, but we talked about it earlier on, Aaron. But right now, Sturgis, in what we always known to be one of the fastest cars in the straight line, the Inex Racing car, is all over the rear of Alex Simpson.
Gotta wonder if, gonna have to check, but maybe Jake Sturgis was on a one-step strategy, and that's why when we saw him earlier, his car seemed to be so slow, so sluggish. But last time we talked about him, he was running in the 17th, 18th position, now running 11th and a chance at a top 10 with Alex Simpson just 4 lengths in front of him.
And as they'll come down into the infield section, we'll keep an eye on that battle. We've still got to keep an eye on the Tommy Nielsen Martin Patilla battle. However, it does look as though that one really has kind of calmed down just a little bit. Enzo Benito is getting held up a little bit by some back markers right now. Andre Borcher Andre Borcher down into the center S, but Benito hasn't had a very easy ride of the lap traffic here today.
Now, what can make lap traffic really difficult, those 3 cars that he just passed him, having those 3 cars in front of him, what makes it difficult is the fact that they are running for a position. When you're running by yourself, it's easy to let the lead lap car go, but when you're in a battle, it's just a little bit more difficult.
And Jake Sturgis on the outside of Alex Simpson, able to get that job done into the center S. What a pass once again by Jake Sturgis on the outside line. And that outside into the center S really has worked well. In the same way, Aaron, that down into Lacuim, you can run the outside line at Spa. Here, the outside line into the center S. If you can be the last of the late breakers, you can still make the apex in the first part of the corner, then have the inside line into the second part, and then you're pretty much going to be flat out for the curve of the stall anyway, as Riku Alatalo has hit the wall, and he was running in the 15th position. He's brought his car onto pit road.
Oh, good run by Riku. Just talked about him 2 laps ago battling Isaac Price. But, oh, you never like to have a 65 lap run be ruined. So unfortunate there, and looking back, just got on the power and just clipped the grass with the left rear in the infield. So, and that's sometimes how you make a pass. Isaac Price was putting the pressure on, and Riku just made just a slight error at the worst time.
Less than 5 laps to go, and out front it is all about Hugo Luis in that number 3 3ID Motorsports car. They've got themselves a new sponsor for this race, with Farage stepping on board with them for the 2014 campaign. And you've got to say, in sim racing, the first thing you want to do if you get yourself a new sponsor is get a victory. And Hugo Luis in that number 3 car, it's just been absolutely dominant today, because early on we thought that perhaps Benito had a chance. Early on we thought that Hootie perhaps made a chance. Even Crunky perhaps might have had a chance, but really, the one guy who's been there all race long has been Hugo Luis.
Absolutely, and almost 7.5 second lead, and that is even with losing 3-4 seconds avoiding the spinning car earlier. So the gap really should be double digits in the terms of how many seconds his lead is, but almost having to come to a stop to avoid an incident earlier in the race. But great run, and he's just less than 3 laps away from bringing it home. The battle for fourth, though. Battle for fourth, Will. Patella is closing the gap.
Yeah, he has closed that gap down once again, and of course, with just a couple of laps to go in this race, anything can happen in this battle for the fourth position. The one is Sturgis and Simpson. Well, that one is over now. Sturgis was able to get past Simpson and had really pulled away in the last couple of laps. But Patella and Nielsen, this one will likely go down to the wire. Right now, they're working themselves through that midfield section of the racetrack. They'll have 3 laps to go the next time they come past the stripe, and this could go either way, I think, because Twister Racing, they've always been a good team, and they have been able to finish ahead of the 3ID Motorsports cars. However, on the day, you have to say 3ID have had the best equipment underneath them.
Oh, most certainly best equipment indeed. The results currently show that. Patella that time much closer to Nielsen than he has been in previous laps. So whatever issues he was having in the infield section, he has figured that out because he is almost within striking distance.
As they come down into the center, as he's not quite close enough, and he also runs really horribly over the curbs there. That is going to squander his opportunity down into turn 4. And it's all that thing about patience. Yes, you've only got a finite number of laps to get the job done. However, you've got to be careful and set that move up. And I think really for Patella that time, he lost it by going over that curb into turn 1.
Oh, the bouncing there really hurt him getting the power down. He may have, if he would have perfected the exit there, he may have been able to use the slipstream and make a move into turn 4. Realistically, he's going to have maybe 4 more chances at a pass. The Senate S and turn 4 at the line 2 laps to go, so he essentially has 4 more opportunities. But in front of him, we have 3 cars battling for position. So I think Nielsen and Patella are going to catch them, so that's going to play a factor as well.
And one driver also who's just appeared out of nowhere is Ilka Hapara in that number 12 car. Now Ilka, he qualified down in the 21st position. He's now running in 7th, Aaron.
Wow, what a day indeed. I think that's the first time we've mentioned his name. So silently moved his way through the field, but sometimes that's what you want, Will. If we're not talking about you, you're not 3-4 wide, you're just methodically moving up the race, so great job.
Dion Burgess and Andre Borcher, they are battling in the closing stages of this race. Also, Christian Laurent right behind them as well. Will Laurent try and go around the outside to come down to turn number 5? The answer is going to be, I don't think he's going to be close enough. No, he won't, but he tried on the outside line there. Battle between Nelson and, this is the battle actually between Nelson and Patella, which is going on right behind them. And this actually is going to help out Tommy Nilsson just a little bit. If he can clear these cars and put one car in the middle of him and Martin Patella, this could be game over for that 3D Motorsports car.
Could be, but at the same time, as fierce as the battle as Laurent and Burgers have had as we start the last lap for the race leader, I don't know if he's just going to let Nielsen by. It's been such an intense battle, you can sort of get blind and just see the car in front of you and lose track that you have a lead lap car that is also battling for position behind you.
Meanwhile, Hugo Louise works himself through turn number 5 for the final time, down into the infield section of the racetrack he goes. And for Hugo Louise, he has just been absolutely sublime in this race today. He qualified on pole position. He was able to gain a huge advantage in the early going, and he works himself down towards turn number 13, Young Cow, for the final time in this race. This is Hugo Louise' home track, and he will come up the hill for the final time. Brazilians around the world on iRacing will be celebrating as Hugo Louise comes out of the final left-hand kick, and he claims victory in the second round of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Hugo Louise back to victory lane.
Great win by Hugo Louise, and also on the last lap, Tommy Nielsen, a contact there in the first right-hander, and Tommy Nielsen did a little half spin, so that's going to give Marty Patella the 4th place finish. Nielsen able to continue on, but that battle, Marty was able to get there and take the 4th spot.
So, Martin Kroenke comes across the start-finish line and he comes home in the second position. Enzo Benito comes home third in the lead Team Red Line car. Martin Patila comes across the stripe fourth. Tommy Nilsson just coming past the line. He will round out your top five. Jeremy Bouteloup in sixth. Ilka Hapala just past the line in seventh. Yuliana Rumi in eighth. And Sturgis almost trying to make that pass as they came to the stripe. And there was just half a tenth of a second between those two drivers. So Sturgis pulled out the draft a tiny bit earlier, Aaron. He might have got that position.
Oh, what a run by Jake Sturgis in the second half of this race. About halfway through the race, he was in about 17th, comes home 9th, almost 8th. Great second half of the race by Jake.
The cars continue to come past start-finish line. Alex Simpson rounds out your top 10. However, as far as it goes, really, Hugo Luis was unstoppable today.
Oh, unstoppable. Great run, great smart race, realizing that Enzo Benito was on a different strategy, let him go, and even with the health issues you mentioned this week, Hugo Luis was essentially flawless. What other word could you use, Will?
Don't have any other word for Hugo Luis. This has got to be one of his most poignant victories, I think, in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, as he is going to... Is he going to lighten them up? The answer is going to be yes, he will. And the Freddie Motorsports car back to victory lane, and he will light the tyres up, do the celebratory donut, and he'll drive backwards towards pit road, and he is incredibly happy with his race victory. However, to run through your final race results here from the Autodromo Jose Carlos Passe, it is Hugo Luis taking victory in a time of 1 hour, 25 minutes, 32.948 seconds. Martin Kroenke in the second position at 4.6 seconds back at the line. Enzo Benito in third, 20 seconds behind your race leader. Martin Patila in fourth. Tommy Nilsson in fifth. Jeremy Bouteloup in the sixth position. Ilka Hapana in seventh position. Yuliana Rumi in eighth. Jake Sturgis in ninth, and Alex Simpson rounds out your top 10. Isaac Price, Paul Ilbrink, and Robin Friscott are 11th through 13th. Paulo Mulia, these last cars to finish on the lead lap in the 14th position. Timo Ivanen, Yorni Tamala, Mikhail Mancusi, Kazuki Omishima, Ole Picard, and Lassie Brun Hansen round out your top 20 as the rest of the results come up on your screen momentarily. What a race we have had here today, Aaron.
What a race. A couple bizarre moments, and the start of the race. What intense battle we saw through the upper third to mid-pack, 3-4 wide racing. Several times where we both said, how on earth did they make it around the corner without everybody ending up off the track? We had split strategies. We had passing. Lots of passing here, Will. This track normally known for not much passing. We saw some fantastic passing here today.
We had passing down into turn 1, we had passing down into turn 4, and of course, we had Enzo Benito in turn 7 make that pass around Hugo Luis for the race lead. I've never seen that.
Yeah, we had passing where you're not supposed to be able to pass, so great battles here today. We had Hugo Luis putting on a clinic, but we also had drivers mid-pack. Tommy Nielsen started 15th, finished 5th. Jake Sturgis came from 17th and finished 9th. So we had a lot of people make up a lot of positions. This was very entertaining.
We'll continue to break it down in the RaceBot TV post-race show. And don't forget, before every round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, RaceBot TV presents the WCS Spotlight Show. Join myself, Will Vincent, Blake Townend, and Nick Rowland as we count down the green flag in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, bringing you all the news and highlights from the paddock, as well as bringing you news of qualifying itself on all RaceBot TV broadcasts. That is WCS Spotlight. It is 1 p.m. GMT immediately before all of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series races. Got a chance to chat with a couple of drivers, and we will start off by talking to Marty Patila from the Prix Motorsports camp. And Marty, you started today in the 9th position, net gain of 5 positions, coming home in 4th, and what a battle you had with Tommy Nilsson at the end.
Yeah, it was quite a fun, the last lap there. Basically the whole race was quite action-filled. Um, I guess there were quite many guys going off, having incidents or whatever, because suddenly I found myself from something like fourth position chasing Enzo Bonito. But, well, I made some mistakes and somehow also managed to damage my front wing there on my second stint. So the pit stop kind of got long because the crew was fixing something that I didn't even know that was broken. But in the end, fourth position is a lot better than I was expecting.
And you only made the one stop on lap number 33. You went on the one stop strategy. However, we have seen other people, most notably your teammates, go on the two stop strategy. What do you think the difference was between running on the one stop or the two stop strategy here today?
I have no idea because I did two stops.
Oh, you did? Oh, sorry, you did do the two stops in the end. I'm really sorry. I'll take that back. But do you think overall there was a big difference between running on the one or the two stop strategy?
I was actually quite surprised to see Jeremy there, quite close at some stage. Looking at the results, 7 seconds behind me, and I assumed that he was going for one stop. So I would say it was surprisingly fast.
Fast, and another good finish in that 3D Motorsports car. 2 weeks time, we'll head over to Suzuka Circuit, a track that you've been on many times before. It's been a crazy start to the Grand Prix season this year. What do you think is going to happen for you in 2 weeks' time?
I'm gonna keep improving. Nothing else.
Always keep improving. I'm sure I've got a sponsorship message for that one, Aaron.
Yeah.
But, I mean, let's not forget, Martin Patel, he did start outside the top 10 when we think about it. Well, sorry, he started inside the top 10, but the rear end of the top 10 in that 9th position. And you have to consider, Patila, also, you've also got to consider the likes of Borcha, who had a good race until his incident, and Yoni Tamada. And it does seem to be that overall here today, the 3D Motorsports camp have just been phenomenally good.
Phenomenally good, absolutely. And if it weren't for that contact, maybe all three cars inside the top 5. So that contact for Bocher early set his car back. The car was never the same. Where he did finish, let's say 22nd. That's still 22nd. He finished off 3 drivers. So even for a damaged car, he did bring it home much higher than what it could have been.
And overall, I have to say, really, the 3ID Motorsports camp have just been phenomenal. But you've got to say for Team Redline here today, yes, they had the issues with Gregor Hutu, the timing issue, and then also that contact with Jonas Nakurian. They have been on the back foot here, but still Enzo Benito, that Italian driver, a sterling performance by that number 17 car.
Perhaps one of the best passes I've ever seen, where you would not think it was even possible. Great pass there. Both of us, I think we thought he was going to win this race, thinking he was on the one-stopper, but in the end was on a two-stop strategy. But a podium finish here and a great race overall by him. Another driver that really didn't put a foot wrong anywhere. So great run by him for sure, and I'm sure he's going to be happy with a 3rd place here today.
We're going to talk about drive of the race, and for me today, personally, there's only really one way I can put it. Hugo Luis.
Oh, no doubt about it. You mentioned maybe the flu, stomach issues this week. To put on a show the way he did, a smart drive. He didn't let the back markers fluster him. He got held up a couple times. He had an incident in front of him. He backed it way down, had the wherewithal to know, I have a big lead. There's no reason to go into this turn. There's a car in the middle of the track. Let's let it sort out. Great run by him. Just flawless. You got to give the drive of the race to him.
You've always got to give the drive of the race when you've given so much effort. And again, he has been on. Yes, drivers always ill. Drivers always run through, illnesses throughout the season. But to just dominate a race today in the way that Hugo Luis has done, in my opinion, has just been phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Martin Kroenke, the closest anybody really got to him on the same strategy was on the start of the race. After the start of the race, Hugo Luis just said goodbye to the field, drove the 71 laps, and just eked out a lead that grew and grew and grew and grew, and wow, what a race.
We are going to have a quick chat as well with Alex Simpson from the Apex Racing stable. Now, Alex, you were able to get yourself here, when all was said and done, a 10th place finish in that number 35 car. You had your teammate Isaac Price right behind you. You gained a net of 3 places in this race. Overall, you got to say, good day's work.
Yeah, pretty happy with that. Interlagos, not one of my favourite tracks, so I was more concerned about qualifying than anything. So potentially 10th or 11th, whatever it might end up being, I'm delighted.
And I mean, it was a crazy start for the race where you were drivers, especially in that first 5-6 laps, running 2, 3, even 4 wide at one point. Just how crazy was it on the racetrack?
Yeah, that was mental, those first few laps. I mean, we were I think there's a bunch of 2-stoppers all tucked up behind Udai, and yeah, we're all tussling for place amongst ourselves to try and get the jump on him. And I'm sure Udai was loving it because we were all battling ourselves and not worrying about him. So yeah, it was good fun though. I enjoyed it a lot.
Enjoyed it, and your teammate behind you, Isaac Price, and of course I can talk to you as well a little bit as team principal. And you had yourself a good.
Sorry, he's not in my team. I better stop you.
I'll stop that. I'll completely stop that. But we'll talk about next week then. At Suzuka, 2 weeks time, actually, third round of the championship, going to another very different racetrack. But this one is all really about how you can get that grip to work aerodynamically and mechanically.
Yeah, Suzuka is my kind of track. I much prefer the fast flowing ones. Good change of direction. To struggle quite a bit with the tracks that require good slow speed rotation and grip. It's just something I need to work on myself with my setups and that. But yeah, I think we're going in the right direction. I was pretty happy with qualifying today, and I look forward to Suzuka. I think we could be up for another possible top 10.
Another possible top 10 there for Alex Simpson in that number 35 Apex racing machine. And another one of those drivers, Aaron, who we didn't really talk too much about, but has been able to find themselves in a top 10 finish, really, just by keeping their front wing clean.
Yeah, it seemed you either wanted to be mentioned for leading, or it seemed a lot of drivers we mentioned were for contact or fierce battles that involved broken wings. So sometimes you want to not be in the limelight. You just want to run your race, methodically work through, pick off people, gain positions through pit strategy, and sometimes you don't want to be the drivers being mentioned that, oh, we're going 3 wide. So great methodical run. Sometimes that's what it takes.
We've got ourselves a couple more people to talk to. We'll start by talking to Ollie Picard. Ollie, tough day for you.
Yeah, tell me about it. I was happy about the race pace. I felt my qualification because there's always pressure and you make mistakes. But yeah, I didn't know really what happened. We had a glitch with Gregor and some third guy was involved in the server glitched and the server didn't count our lap. But I thought that officials gonna move me back to where I belong, was I P4 at the moment or P3. And I just drove my race like I would have been in the P3, but then I heard that I was still on P20, so I started a really good rush, overtook a lot of people and tried to gain more positions. But yeah, that's how this ends up.
It was a tough second part of the race for you because, of course, you were classified as lap traffic, and we saw some very close near misses of you in that latter stage of the race, but able to get yourself back up into P19, so I'm guessing it's not the end of the world for you. But again, Glacier Racing has shown some very good pace in the race, but in qualifying, both yourself and Alexei Yusiakoda did have some big issues.
Yeah, we have noticed that, and I think it's probably because we are lacking some experience comparing to Huttu or Luis or other old guys in the series. So we're trying to get it better. Next track is Suzuka. It's one of our favorites. And yeah, we need to work on the qualifying. At that pressure what comes in the qualifying, and especially the starts are a bit struggle for me. But when we get the qualifying and starts okay, I think we're going to be much more closer to the red line and my 3ID.
So one great race at Spa, one not so great race here at Interlagos. What are you looking for at Suzuka in 2 weeks' time?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I think like in Interlagos and Spa, we are going to challenge my triad in Motorsport and Redline. Like we have kind of challenge these last 2 races, so I'm looking forward to it, and I'm starting practice already tomorrow and trying to be more prepared than ever, because it's getting tougher when you get the drop week due to that glitch.
Oliver Collar, only P19 for him today. And Aaron is stood by with Marcus Caton.
Marcus Caton, wow, what a race. Early on in the race, it was fierce battling. Were you any part of the just fantastic racing we saw off the start?
Yeah, that was the case. I decided to go with a 2-stop strategy no matter what. I ran a 1-stop last season and it didn't work out for me, so I screw it, I'm going to run it, even though I was at the back of the field. And, I just had to pass a lot of people, and I just went for it. Things were going well throughout the race. Towards the end, I had an incident with Mancusi, which was 100% my fault. I didn't leave enough room. It was in my blind spot, so I misjudged it. It was my one major mistake of the race. Lost like 10 seconds on my strategy, which didn't help me jump some of the guys ahead. So.
And you mentioned last season the strategy didn't work. Thinking back, would you start this race with the same strategy you started with today?
Of course, so they've probably been a bit more aggressive and stuck it up the inside a few times. But it was working out very well. I was surprised I was able to get up to a lot of people who were much further ahead on 1-stop sooner than later. If I had passed them a little bit earlier, I would have been able to make up the time. So it seems 2-stop might become the standard strategy going forward for the rest of the season.
And again, the racing, very close, lots of passing. Was it start of the race, middle half, very close racing? Was that an enjoyable race in terms of just how fierce the competition was here today?
Sliding sideways while side by side with somebody is not the most enjoyable situation, but it was a fantastic race. I have to say that, even though with my mistake with Mancusi, I can't talk it down at all. I finished in 21st, but after the poop shoot that was Spa, it's still a good result, and I'm just looking forward to pushing more at Suzuka.
And speaking of Suzuka, looking forward to that in 2 weeks' time?
Of course. I mean, it's my chance to push a bit more and show the pace we have, because I wasn't able to do that in qualifying, and that really affects what race you can run, how far up the grid you can qualify. But the pace is there. From like 5th all the way back, everyone is very close on the pace. It's just a matter of what lap they get in qualifying.
Well, Marcus Caton, looking forward to next week, 21st, but wow, involved in many of our close battles here today.
Indeed, he was.
It's Caton, by the way.
All right.
No.
Yeah.
Finally, we're going to have a quick chat with Martin Kroenke, who came home in the 2nd position in the number 5 380 Motorsports car. Martin, you get a new sponsor, you go and get yourself P1 and 2 in the race. You've got to be happy with your overall result, and also that of your teammates you're going to ease.
Hello, obviously, yes, we are very happy with the result. Went pretty much flawless, except for my spin in the first couple of laps. But luckily, that didn't really matter much in the end.
Now, down into turn 1 on the first lap of the race, it did look as though that you had a gap to go down to the inside of Hugo Louise into turn 1, but was that a thing of you decided just not to force the issue? Because it was very close between you those first couple of corners.
Yeah, I didn't really try to overtake him. I was surprised myself that I got a pretty decent launch compared to him, and gained a couple of meters on the way to turn 1, but I actually didn't really plan to overtake him. And I tried to leave enough space and let him go. I didn't want to force an issue there, like it happened in Watkins Glen last year, or in Sebring last year.
And then take us through that spin that happened, that half spin that happened down on the back end of the racetrack. It did look as though you just perhaps caught a white line.
Yeah, actually that is exactly the reason why I spun. I just hit the grass with the left rear tire slightly under braking, and I just couldn't do anything anymore. Just hope that I don't really hit anything and go on. Luckily I didn't hit anything, so it didn't really make much of a difference for the rest of the race.
Now, you guys want a two-stop strategy, pitting pretty much exactly at 1/3 race distance, 2/3 race distance. Did you think that overall the two-stop was going to be faster for you, or was that a choice that you made after qualifying once you figured out where your position on the starting grid was?
Well, we planned with a two-stop actually, because we were pretty sure that it is faster. We just weren't sure whether we were going to do it depending on the qualifying position. If I maybe qualified in 20th position or 15th or 13th like I did last time in Spa, I probably would have gone for a one-stop strategy. But when you're in the front row, no one is going to hold you up during the first stint, so a two-stop would have been better.
And now, in 2 weeks' time, we head over to Suzuka Circuit, and it always seemed to be at the start of seasons, you and Redline seem to be trading blows. And what do you think your chances are when we go to Suzuka in 2 weeks' time? Can you make it back-to-back victories for Prix Motorsports, or do you think that the challenge is going to be really big next time out?
I honestly don't know. Obviously, the challenge is always pretty big because it's Team Redline. They are very, very good. And you can never be sure that we're quicker than them. So, yeah, we just got to see.
2 weeks' time, we'll see, with Martin Kroenke coming home in the second position, his teammate Hugo Louise coming home with the race victory, and of course a new sponsor to boot with Faraja, and them getting a 1-2 of their first sponsor. Aaron, you've got to say, new sponsor, 1-2 finish, good result.
Good result, perfect result, you could say. You can't hope for anything more, and not only a 1-2 finish, but a 1-2 finish in absolute dominant fashion. So add that to the list of good introductions, I guess you could say.
And final thoughts in this race. It's been crazy, but once again, the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series does show strength in numbers, a depth of competition, because we've seen battles up and down the field, all the way from qualifying. I mean, you had, 1/10 of a second separating 8 drivers, and then in the race, really close racing.
Oh, the starting grid was separated less than a second, I think. So the depth, the closeness, we saw some of the fiercest, I think fiercest is about the best word to describe the racing we saw in the first 10 laps. Saw split strategies. We saw just about everything this race, Will, and some just incredible passing. Oh, wow, just absolute, what a race. What a race indeed.
And with that, it is time to wrap up our coverage of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series event from Interlagos Circuit. Hugo Louise claiming victory by almost 5 seconds over Martin Kroenke. A dominant display by the Prix Motorsports drivers. We had a total of 6 lead changes here today, and the first lap of the race, well, that went to Hugo Louise in a time of 1 minute 10.66 seconds. The next round of the NASCAR Peak Anti-Freeze Series takes place on March 25th at Auto Club Speedway. 125 laps around the 2-mile oval. That'll be live on PSR TV and the Motor Racing Network, as well as iRacing Live. The next round of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series will be on March 29th. Start time for that will be 2 p.m. GMT here on RaceSpot TV. And don't forget, the WCS Spotlight Show will be immediately presiding that at 1 p.m. GMT. And that will also be on iRacing Live. Myself, Will Vincent, and from Aaron Likens, Raphael Sank on cameras, very good afternoon to you, and also congratulations to PSR TV commentator Chris Hall getting married today. Congratulations to him. Also, congratulations to Hugo Louise. What a victory here today.